Good evening, everyone. My name is Edgar, and you're watching Historical Conspiracies. Tonight on Storytime with Edgar, we're doing part 4 of I'm Pretty Sure My Niece is Trying to Kill Me. If you have missed the first few installments of this story, I recommend you go check them out before you listen to this one. Alright, so we're gonna get right into it. And once again, this is part 4 of I'm Pretty Sure My Niece is Trying to Kill Me. I left Vera Blake's house right at 6:30 p.m. and arrived in the city square at 6:45. I spent 15 minutes walking around, wondering to myself how I would know when I met the right person. What if Cassie found out I was meeting Eric? What if she sent someone to impersonate him? What if I was betrayed again and he was going to send me to die? What if none of that is right and I actually am going to help you? A strong baritone voice said behind me. I turned around and looked up to see a tall man with a handsome face looking at me. Hi, Rose. I'm Eric. How did you know? You look like a sunnier version of Cassie. He smiled, and I immediately got a gut feeling that I could trust him. As some of you suggested, it's time I trust my judgment, so I did. Eric pulled out an identical pendant to the one that Cassie had given me the day before. Well, nearly identical. The one he was holding had a sheen of iridescent purple to it. The pendant Cassie gave you, it kind of looks like this, doesn't it? I couldn't help but nod. Except without the purple tones, right? Yes. I switched them, he said, sighing as I confirmed what he obviously thought was happening. She doesn't know, obviously. I had my wife switch them when she went in to work with this pendant. Does your wife know about Audrey? Yes, I told her before we got married, he said. He motioned me to a bench and we sat down. Look, we don't have a lot of time right now, so I'm going to tell you what your grandparents and your parents should have told you when you were kids. I need you to listen, because I don't want anything to happen to you or Audrey. Right now, you're the only thing that can protect my daughter. I just nodded. Cassie was marked. I'm guessing Blake told you that, he said, as he caught sight of the look on my face. Yes, I'm friends with them both, although that's pretty new, and didn't come easy. But yeah, I knew she was marked the minute she told me she was pregnant. I don't know what she told you, but I did tell her to get an abortion. Not because I wanted to not have a kid, but because I knew she'd either kill the child eventually, or, if it was a girl, she'd eventually try to transfer her possession to her. My parents told me that that was a risk, and even showed me the old books to prove it. So the old books exist, a set of tomes written by the founders of the town over 100 years ago. Some people thought they had been lost to the fire that ravaged the valley and the lake in the 1950s. Others thought some of the families secured them in vaults hidden in the hills. Eric's family must have had at least some of them. Now Cassie has been tasked with killing a family member since you two were young. The stuff that happened at Lincoln Falls Manor may have been meant to kill you. I'm guessing your mother and grandmother protected you from most of it, but without removing your sister entirely, you were always in danger. Here he took a quick breath. The man in the attic wouldn't allow that. His name is Mangor. The name rang a bell, the boogeyman from the stories that my grandfather would tell us. He's been attached to your family since this place was built. He's real. I've never seen him in the flesh, but I have seen him through Cassie. He can move in and out of her, wearing her like a shell. I don't know how she managed to keep him at bay for so long, but once she got pregnant, I knew she had a plan. She's always been jealous of you. I don't know why, but if she had her choice, and the old books say she does, you're the target. You're the one she wants gone. My parents spoke with your family when we found out she was having a girl. They said that it was possible she could temporarily pass on the possession to Audrey once she turned 10. She would only have a year to finish what she was tasked with. If she doesn't complete it, she'll die, and Mangor returns to Cassie. She'll have to finish you herself. I wish I could say my stomach dropped at this point, but it didn't. I knew this was coming. Still, it stung to know there was so much about Cassie I didn't know. So I kept listening. Our families split the old books. Your grandfather has a book that states how you can save yourself and Audrey. Eric took a deep breath. I'm sorry, but I don't know much more than that. The old man said that if you were ever in this position, that the book would reveal itself. I don't know what the hell that means. Audrey is my daughter, but it is you that has to protect her, because it is your family blood that will kill her. I'm sorry, I know this isn't fair to you, but this is up to you. Eric stood up and handed me a small box with sigil carvings. I knew them well. They live on the walls of Lincoln Falls Manor, the very first house built on the lake. I'm guessing Cassie's gone to your grandfather to get the books, he said, sighing and running his hand over his chiseled jaw. Mangor will need them if she's successful. The words written on those pages will help him hasten the awakening of the others in the flesh so they can do... His voice trailed, and he looked confused. Actually, no one knows what they'll do if they're successful, he said, but I don't think we want to find out. I stood up next to him, slipping the small box into my purse. Rose, I wish this didn't have to be your journey, he said as he pulled something out of his pocket. He produced a locket, one like the one my grandmother always wore around her neck, and fastened it around my own. But it is, and I want you to know that whatever happens, whatever choice you have to make, I will always be grateful that you tried to help Audrey. And with that, he walked away. Alright, my gentle viewers. The time has come in the video once again where we share a little bit of information about our sponsors. One of our sponsors is bizbin.com. And I noticed on bizbin.com, I know I saw at one point a vintage Ouija board. This was really cool. There's some really interesting books, as well as vintage and antique tarot card decks. Lots of custom design people who can make stuff for you, as far as artwork or jewelry. So there's a lot of very interesting stuff going on, some creepy and spooky stuff there as well. So you should check it out, keep an eye out, get in on an auction, you might get a really good score. Alright, I guess that is about it. Let's get back to our story. I didn't have a plan at the moment. I didn't know what to think. I was pissed beyond belief that this secret had been kept from me for so long. But in the moment, and even now, it didn't matter, because Mangor and Cassie weren't going to get what they wanted. Not if I can help it. So I got in my car, and I opened the box that Eric had given me. Inside was a small vial of oil, and as soon as I smelled the rosemary and saw the glint of clear quartz in the bottle, I smiled. Protection oil. I rubbed it on my temples and on the inside of my wrists like it was a habit and started up the car. The drive to my grandfather's house took about an hour. That's because I chose to take back roads, in case Cassie was on the road. I knew she'd be at the house, of course. It would be the logical next step for her. She probably knew something was wrong, but probably also assumed that I didn't know what was going on, and would immediately assume that Audrey was up to no good. But she also needed those books, and our grandpa was the one who had them. I should say this, my grandfather is about 75, and is still one of the most active and fit men I have known in my entire life. He is more than capable of taking care of himself, and has done this for as long as I could remember. So I wasn't surprised when I showed up at the house to find the old man sitting on the porch with his pipe in one hand, his rifle in the other, waiting for me. "It's about time you showed up," he said, his normally cheerful tone soured by something that occurred long before I got there. "I was getting worried. Audrey?" "Protected," I said. He just nodded. He and I both knew the unwritten rules of the game we were being forced to play. You only tell what is necessary and keep everything else hidden, both for your protection and the protection of your loved ones. In this town, the more you said, the more danger you were in. "Cassie?" "Came flying in like a bat out of hell last night," he muttered. "Forced her way inside, and took a swipe at your Uncle Louis, left this gash in me." He pulled aside his hunting jacket to show me dried blood. He winced when I touched his side, but I could tell it was already healing. I knew better than to ask how it was healing so soon. I didn't have the time for the answer, and he and I both knew it. "I'm sorry, Rosie Posey," he said, using his nickname for me. He looked a little ashamed, carving new lines on his face. "I should have told you a long time ago that Cassie was marked. Your grandma, you know, she thought she had it bound." He tisked, which is his way of saying that she should have known better. "The man in the attic?" I asked. "Mangor," he replied, nodding. "Yeah, he's with her, only she's weak now. He ain't tied to her. The spell she did ain't wore off yet. You have until daybreak because whatever you did is bringing him back here. He won't have to wait till Audrey's birthday now." Daybreak. I squared my shoulders and slipped my hand into my jacket pocket to feel the smooth box on my fingertips. Then I nodded and headed towards the door. "Rosie?" My grandpa stood in front of me, his hands on my shoulder. "Listen, it's gonna be hard and I know it, but Cassie ain't your sister anymore. She wants this thing to win, okay? It's not using her, they're working together. So you gotta be careful, because she ain't fighting it. She's working with it." I know. It sucked to say that out loud, but it was true. I snipped the tears out of my eye. "I know that, Grandpa." "I don't know if you can save Audrey, darling. I don't know," he said, his eyes welling with tears. "If your grandma were here, she'd know. But I just want you to know that I need you to come back, alright? You do what you gotta do." "I don't know what I gotta do," I whispered. I could feel the fear seeping under my skin, like river water filling my clothes, like when we were kids and we'd wade into the water to catch tadpoles. "You'll know. You'll feel it. You're one of us, and it's in our blood," he said. Then he stepped aside. As I walked past, he said, "You're gonna lose time. You're battling with things that don't play by our time rules. Just remember that." The door creaked shut behind me, just a small click telling me I was alone in the house I grew up in. Every corner I could see from the foyer was dark, dripping with black stained rainwater. The drip, drip, drip causing me to look everywhere for a sign. I received no sign. I moved further into the house and took out the box, sliding my fingers over the sigil, repeating the prayer my grandma and mama taught me as a baby. My voice barely a whisper. I drew circles around the sigils, saying the words over and over, like I was humming a lullaby, as I inched along the wall towards the kitchen and past the grand staircase that led to the second floor. That's when I heard it. The growl. A long, sustained, deep growl coming from right behind me near the stairs. I turned to see a massive black wolf pacing up and down in front of the stairs. Its eyes were a light gray, and it seemed to be beckoning me. I continued my prayer, and as I moved my hands on the box, the wolf stopped growling, and, as strange as it seems, started to calm down. Then it vanished. A second later, I could hear it panting from above me. I leaned over the banister of the staircase and looked up to see it standing at the second floor landing. It was wagging its tail. My gut told me to follow it, and since I didn't have a plan, I decided to. I walked up to the wolf, and as soon as I reached it, it vanished again, only to reappear at the entrance of my grandfather's study, right next to the library. We'd never been allowed to go in there as children, but I chanced it. This door, the one I had tried opening so many times when I was a child, opened before my fingers touched the brass. Alright guys, I guess that wraps up story time tonight, and you should keep an eye on our channel because we will be doing more. In the meantime, if you get the opportunity, please check out our sponsor, bizbin.com. Pretty awesome community over there. And on that note, my name is Edgar, and you're watching Historical Conspiracies. Have a creepy day.